In the heart of Olorun village lived a young woman named Abeni. She was known far and wide, not for her beauty or wisdom, but for her sharp tongue and utter lack of respect. She held no regard for the elders, mocked those who tried to correct her, and treated her peers with disdain. To Abeni, respect was an outdated custom, meant only for the weak. Every morning, as villagers gathered in the market, Abeni would walk through with an air of arrogance, pushing past people as if they were mere obstacles in her path. "Out of my way, you slow old fools!" she would shout, laughing as she knocked over baskets of fruit and spilled water from clay pots. The villagers shook their heads, whispering prayers that she would one day learn humility. But Abeni had no patience for their concerns. One fateful afternoon, as she wandered along the outskirts of the village, she came across an old woman sitting by the side of the road. The woman was hunched over, her hands rough and wrinkled out from years of labor. She wore a simple cloth wrapped around her frail body and clutched a wooden staff for support. The woman's eyes, though clouded with age, held a strange, knowing light. "Dear child, could you help me cross the road? My legs have grown weak and I fear I might fall," the old woman said in a soft, gentle voice. Abeni snorted and folded her arms. "Do I look like a servant to you? You should have stayed home instead of blocking the path. Move aside before I push you myself." The villagers who had gathered nearby gasped at her words. "Abeni, have you no shame?" one man muttered under his breath. But Abeni only scoffed. The old woman sighed, her eyes filled with something that made Abeni uneasy. "There is great power in kindness, my dear, but you will learn that soon enough." Abeni threw her head back and laughed. "Power? An old beggar like you knows nothing of power. Get out of my sight before I lose my patience." The old woman simply nodded, her expression unreadable. "Very well," she said softly. Then, without another word, she turned and hobbled away. Abeni smirked, feeling victorious, but the uneasy feeling in her stomach did not fade. The wind picked up, rustling the trees around her. The villagers, still staring in disbelief, whispered among themselves. Abeni ignored them and strutted home, unaware that her life was about to change in a way she could never have imagined. The following morning, Abeni awoke feeling strange. A deep chill ran through her body, and an unsettling silence filled her heart. She opened her mouth to yawn, but no sound came out. Frowning, she tried to speak, to call for her mother, but her voice was gone. Panic surged through her. She clutched her throat, struggling to make a single sound. Nothing. It was as if her voice had been stolen overnight. Abeni staggered to her feet and rushed outside, hoping someone could help her. The village was already awake, bustling with activity. She ran toward a group of women, fetching water from the well, and tried to speak, but they barely glanced at her. She waved her arms frantically, but no one seemed to acknowledge her. It was as if she were invisible. She grabbed the arm of a passing boy, but he yelped and shook her off, looking around in confusion. "Who touched me?" he asked, his face pale with fear. Abeni's breath caught in her throat. No one could hear her. No one could see her. She stumbled back, her mind spinning in horror. She ran to her mother's hut, desperate for comfort. But as she burst inside, her mother went about her mourning as if Abeni wasn't there. "Mama," she mouthed, but the words were lost in the void. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for her mother's arm. The moment she touched her, an icy shiver passed through her body, and her mother shuddered, rubbing her arms. "What felt a strange chill, she muttered, glancing around. Abeni gasped and backed away. She was truly invisible. She was completely alone. Realization dawned on her like a crushing weight. This was no ordinary misfortune. This was punishment. A curse. Her mind flashed back to the old woman she had insulted the day before. The warning echoed in her head. There is great power in kindness, my dear. But you will learn that soon enough. Terror clawed at her chest. The old woman had not been ordinary. She had been something far greater, something beyond human. And Abeni had brought this upon herself. For the first time in her life, she felt regret. But regret alone would not save her. She had to find a way to break the curse before it was too late. She spent the day wandering through the village, desperately trying to make someone see her. She knocked over clay pots, waved her hands in front of people's faces, and even sat beside children, hoping they would notice her presence. But no one did. By nightfall, she was exhausted. She sat by the riverbank, staring at her reflection. Her face was still there, yet it was as if she no longer existed. A single tear slid down her cheek. Just then, a faint rustling came from the trees behind her. She turned sharply and saw a shadow moving in the moonlight. Her heart pounded. Was it the old woman, the goddess? Had she come to punish her further? Taking a deep breath, Abeni rose to her feet. If there was even the slightest chance that the woman could hear her, she had to try. Trembling, she followed the shadow into the darkness, determined to seek forgiveness, no matter what it took. Abeni wandered through the dense forest, her steps uncertain. The further she went, the heavier the air became, as though unseen forces watched her every move. The path twisted before her, and she found herself in a place she had never seen before, an eerie clearing illuminated by the silver glow of the full moon. In the center of the clearing stood the old woman, but now she no longer looked frail. She radiated an aura of immense power, her form shimmering with an ethereal light. Abeni's legs buckled, and she fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she opened her mouth, but no words came out. She bowed her head low, trembling. The old woman studied her for a long time before speaking. "Do you now understand the weight of your words and actions?" she asked, her voice echoing through the trees. Abeni nodded vigorously, pressing her forehead against the earth in silent plea. The goddess sighed. "To truly earn forgiveness, you must serve those you have wronged. Humble yourself before them and learn what it means to be kind. Only then will your curse be lifted." Abeni's heart pounded in her chest. Serve? The word felt foreign to her. She had never done anything for anyone else in her life. But now, she had no choice. If she wanted to be seen and heard again, if she wanted her life back, she had to change. The goddess waved a hand, and in a blink, Abeni found herself back in the village. But nothing had changed. She was still invisible. Realizing she had to prove herself, she set to work immediately. She cleaned the village square, swept the elders' huts, and fetched water from the stream. She tended to the goats and cows, something she had always scorned others for doing. At first, the villagers thought the work was being done by spirits. They whispered among themselves, some even growing fearful. But they appreciated the unseen hands making their lives easier. Days passed, and Abeni worked tirelessly. She fed the hungry, helped rebuild broken fences, and even picked fruits and left them at doorsteps. On the fifth day, a little boy, Ade, ran toward his mother, crying, "Mama, I saw her. I saw Abeni." His mother scolded him, believing he was imagining things, but later that night, another villager also caught a glimpse of her shadow. By the seventh day, Abeni woke up to the soft sound of birds chirping outside. She reached for a clay pot of water and gasped as she heard the sound of it scraping against the ground. Sound she could hear again. She stood and ran outside, breathing heavily. The village was alive with movement, and this time, as she walked through, heads turned. The villagers saw her. They truly saw her. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had been forgiven. That evening, as the sun set over Oloron village, the old woman appeared once more. This time, Abeni did not hesitate. She fell to her knees and bowed deeply. "Thank you, great one. I have learned my lesson." The goddess nodded. "Remember, child, respect and kindness are the true strengths of a person. Carry this wisdom with you always." From that day forward, Abeni became a woman of humility, wisdom, and grace, a living lesson that no one in the village would ever forget. The story of Abeni teaches the importance of respect, humility, and kindness. Abeni's arrogance and disrespect led to her downfall, showing that pride can blind a person to their own flaws. Her punishment serves as a reminder that every action has consequences, and mistreating others, especially the elderly and less fortunate, can bring unexpected misfortune. However, the story also emphasizes that redemption is possible through genuine change. By humbling herself and serving those she once scorned, Abeni was able to break the curse, proving that kindness and humility have the power to heal and restore. Additionally, the story highlights that true strength lies in character, not power. Abeni once believed dominance made her strong, but she learned that real strength comes from treating others with dignity and compassion. It also reinforces the idea that justice will always prevail, as supernatural forces ensured Abeni faced the consequences of her actions while also granting her a second chance. The lessons from her journey serve as a timeless reminder that our behavior shapes our destiny and that respect and kindness will always lead to a better path in life. Thanks for watching. Kindly help us grow by subscribing to this channel, like the video, and share. You can also share your thoughts in the comment section below. See you soon.